Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm 25 years old. It feels kind of odd sharing my life story now, but it feels like the right time. About a year ago, the love of my life, Jeremy, finally proposed to me. It was magical. He went down to his knee while we were roaming Sunset Beach in California on a holiday. I would have said yes a million times if I could. Overjoyed, we went to celebrate our evening with some fine dining. I couldn't have been happier. I had known and loved Jeremy for 3 years, so at that point, if he hadn't proposed, I was probably going to. As we had dinner, we discussed the wedding we would have. I said, "You know this, honey. I've always dreamed of a big wedding. All of my family with all of yours is going to be so dreamy." "Calm down, Susie," he replied. "Let's take our time with this. We need to plan the money first, you know. Nothing works without it." He laughed it off, but I was way too excited for us. There was also a big secret in the making that I wanted to keep from Jeremy until I was certain. I knew once he found out, he'd be over the moon with happiness. But all things have a time, so until then, I was keeping it quiet. Slowly, the days rolled into months. I bought myself the perfect wedding dress and started picking out the venues with him. We'd spend our weekends driving around town. We'd go to cathedrals, small churches, and so many other places that it would leave us no time for anything else. I'm the organized type, so I was keeping a list of every single thing. The type of flowers we'd have, the dress code, food, everything. But in all of this, we forgot maybe the most important detail, meeting our families. I wanted to wait until everything about the wedding was fixed, but Jeremy wanted me to meet his mother. I was a bit scared because I'd never really talked to her before, but he had me convinced it would be all right. "Mom is going to love you," he said. "She used to be a lawyer, so she can be a bit straightforward, but that's just how she is. Don't overthink it." Okay, I'll try my best. I had to see her someday anyway. I just hope it goes well. We drove to her place after work on a Tuesday in the evening. It was a pretty house, which wasn't too big, but not too small either. She opened the door and greeted us. "Oh, my darling, how are you? It's been so long since you came home last. Don't you miss your mother?" "Hey, Mom." "Of course I missed you, but it's not about us today. I want you to meet someone. This is the love of my life, Susan." "So you're the one looking to steal my son from me, huh?" She laughed and came in for a hug. "No, of course not. Just borrowing him for a little bit, I'd say." "Oh well, I'd be happy to lend him at the right price. Come on in, let's eat something nice. Family dinner for everyone." We went inside the house. I was told that Jeremy's dad was not home at the time. He was attending to business and would only join us later on for dinner, maybe. My mother-in-law to be often spends time in the house alone, waiting for him to come so they can spend time together. I think that's a very deep bond, and it only made me more excited to meet Jeremy's dad. However, that day my excitement would soon start slowly melting away. It's probably because of the conversation that came up at the table that day. To me, Cynthia seems a bit too old school, and I'm trying to be respectable here, because that's not a term anyone else would use. I remember how she brought this up. She asked me, "So, Susan, I was just wondering, how much do you usually make in a year?" The question took me aback. Why was she asking about my salary out of the blue? I make enough, I suppose. I'm a key member of this startup and get paid pretty decently. Sometimes more if I get some incentive for performance. Anyway, I've always felt experiences are far more important in any field. Cynthia seemed impressed, or maybe she was shocked. I really couldn't tell the vague expression she had on. "Interesting. You know, my Jeremy makes about $70,000 a year." "Why are we bringing this up?" "Oh, it's nothing. I just thought that maybe you two should really start thinking about the money. After all, being a woman takes its toll, doesn't it, Susan?" I was confused. Did she mean being a woman would be more expensive? I didn't say anything, just nodded along because I had no clue what she was going on about. The conversation ended right there, and we sat around talking about how he and I met and fell in love. I felt like revealing my secret to both Cynthia and Jeremy, but the moment didn't feel right. A few hours later, Jeremy's dad, Bob, finally joined us. He looked like he was easily in his 50s. There was a lot of gray in his beard. Bob was a pensive man. When he laughed, it was never more than a shy chuckle. His agreements were slight nods and disagreements a quiver of his lips. He didn't say much all this while. Cynthia was a complete chatterbox like Jeremy, but I had no idea that she and I would get along less and less after that day. Her views on womanhood were the most surprising to me. I am an only child of my parents and was raised with pride. I was asked to never look down on anyone, especially myself, even in tricky circumstances. And Cynthia was someone who had accomplished herself in the court by the time she had Jeremy, so it was really like a shockwave when she said, "Before you guys get married, I strongly suggest getting a prenup. I mean, you understand, right, Susan? You're smart. You know women can never really make as much money as men." I was stunned by the statement. The food I was chewing on just stopped where it was. What was I supposed to say? Then Jeremy stepped in. "Mom, we've talked about this. When are you going to quit saying things like that while we're eating too?" "Oh, come on, honey bun, you know how things are. I've never made as much as your father out of respect. You think I couldn't have if I wanted to. It's just how things are. You understand, right, Susan, darling? I understand your concern about the prenup, Cynthia, but I don't get why you think women can't make as much as men. I mean, I do technically make more than him right now, and we're not tense about it. It's completely normal." "Maybe so, but that's how things work in this household. I was hoping you'd be a bit more considerate." That for me was strike one. Jeremy and I were desperately in love, so we never really thought about getting a prenup. The subject had come up, but we disregarded it. Now Cynthia was actively trying to force it on us, more specifically on me. She thought I needed to save my money to raise children and buy kitchenware. I was sure there was more to it than she let on. Slowly, we kept having more and more conversations like this one. It was all a bit scary because the day of the wedding was coming closer. Jeremy thought it was a good idea to take Cynthia and Bob with us on a Sunday to see the venues we'd shortlisted. So we went to this beautiful church in the west of the city. It was a magnificent place with so much beauty. I wish I was good enough to describe it. This was most likely going to be the place because Jeremy and I loved it. But since we were not members of that church in particular, we would have to pay for the place. There were also the costs for the minister's time, as well as tokens of gratitude for letting us use the place. The bottom line is, it was going to be expensive, especially if you add in the costs of the dinner and after party at a different venue. Cynthia and Bob looked impressed, to say the least. They walked around the church together and inspected every corner with amazement in their eyes. So far, there had been no negativity, so I was feeling a bit relieved. But my relief would prove to be short-lived when Cynthia came back. "The place looks amazing. Amazing. I knew my boy had good taste. Actually, Susan picked this one out, Mum. She worked hard to find it. It's so far from where we live, but so perfect." "Oh, well, that's lovely then. But I hope she's not looking to pay for all of this. That's a gentleman's job, isn't that right, hun?" In response, Bob just gave a sly little smile and nodded a yes before saying, "Our son will take care of all of this. You won't spend a single penny, Susan. We're planning on splitting the costs of everything. What you're seeing is just the church. The decorations and the dinner and dance party later on are all 10 times more amazing. Oh, darling, but you need to keep your money to yourself. We don't need you to spend it. And did you think about getting your prenuptial? Cynthia, why do you keep asking us to get a prenup? I think we're going to be a very happy couple with enough finances. Oh, you say that today, but what if you come to my son's bank in the next 2 years? I hope it never comes to pass, but honey, I've seen many divorces. Women can become so selfish when they make less. You can't blame me for being cautious. Are you trying to say I'm marrying him for the money, Cynthia? That's such a terrible accusation. Oh, love, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying it's worth considering. Me and Bob here got a prenup, and we're doing wonderfully. All I had to do was make less than him, and he was happy. I am sure a young woman like you can do that for Jeremy, too. Right? Oh my God, Mom. It's like you're not even trying to hear her out. It's not the way we do things anymore. Jeremy waits. Look, Cynthia, I really don't like the way you seem to think about women, but I'll let it go for now. I'm sure we can talk about it at home. And about the prenups, if it matters to you that much, we'll give it some thought. Okay. Does that make you happy? Oh, the happiest. She said that and gave me the fakest hug I've ever had. The drive home was so awkward with the two of them in the back. Jeremy and I couldn't talk about the things that were going on at the time, so we held back. Once we went back to our place, we decided to bring it up. He said, I feel so bad about all of this. I hope she had changed a bit, but in all these years, there's nothing. It's okay, I get it. I'm not happy with how she thinks. It almost disgusts me. But I can give the prenups more thought if you're okay with it. I have nothing against it, my love, you know that. I just don't think we'll ever need them. But she's been so annoyingly persistent. Honestly, I love her, but she can get on my nerves too sometimes. It's okay. I don't want to ruin your bond with your mother. If it makes her happy, we'll get the prenups done. Let's just find a good lawyer. Fine, let's take a little break from the wedding plans then. Not a very long one, though. I really can't wait to see you in the white dress, honey. Things like this are what made me fall in love with this man. We were adaptable. We'd adjust to any situation without compromising each other. That right there is what true love looks like. So we took some time from work and got our prenup agreement straight. He would keep what's his, and I would keep what's mine if things were to ever go sideways. Now Cynthia was happy. There was a bounce in her walk that wasn't there before. Here I was, still unsure why exactly she wanted us to get the prenup. Surely the reason had to be deeper. It all became clear to me when we decided to spend a night with Jeremy's parents. The night was great. We had a barbecue and danced around. Cynthia didn't bring up anything negative the whole time. Honestly, I felt like the storm had blown over. Jeremy had to go to work the next morning, but I had the day off, so I was still in bed. Cynthia didn't know I was awake already, and so I heard her talking about something on a call. Oh yes, they finally signed it. I'm so happy right now, you have no idea, she said. Mary was Jeremy's aunt and her sister. I couldn't believe she was already spreading the news all over the place. I don't know about this girl. I mean, she seems nice and decent, but come on, you know Jeremy. He's too innocent, never really learned how to grow up and look out for himself. Honestly, he can do so much better than her, I swear. I was shattered. I knew she was a bit strange, but Jeremy loved me with all his heart. Why would she even say something like that? I'd done nothing to hurt him in all the time we'd been together. I didn't make a sound, though. The bedroom door was slightly open, and I kept hearing the conversation as she passed around the hall doing chores. "Oh, please, Mary, stop taking her side. You haven't even met her. You'll see what I'm talking about when you meet her. And one day Jeremy will see too. Then he's going to want to divorce her, and then what? She would have taken everything we have." I almost felt like crying. Even Mary seemed like she was being a bit more humane at the time, and she didn't even know me. How could a stranger understand you better than your mother-in-law? It was heartbreaking. "Look, don't tell anyone, okay? The thing is, Bob's getting old and tired now. You know it. He just wants to sit in a chair and sleep all day if he can. He wants to give the business to Jeremy to handle, all of it. It's not like we have another son, right? We were just scared that this random woman he fell in love with would take all the money from him. I mean, why wouldn't she? If she wants to make more money than him, why wouldn't she think of just taking all he has? What was even going on? Why would I take his money? I had enough of my own. At that moment, I began truly despising her for the way she thought. It was as if every woman was her son's enemy. Suddenly, the reasons for her wanting a prenup had become so clear. This was why she wanted to keep me submissive. It all just made sense. I couldn't take all the information, and tears began rolling down my face. I made sure she wouldn't hear me, though. It was a tough time, but I powered through anyway. More importantly, Cynthia wasn't the only one with a secret. The thing is, I've been working with my startup for a few years now. I saw its initial days and helped expand it to so many states. Now our current CEO, Edgar, was stepping down because he wanted to jumpstart his own separate venture. He thought it best for me to take up the position instead. I'd been unsure about taking it up so far, but now I was sure, and that's the news I had to break to Jeremy. Oh boy, I will just in a way no one would have expected. And so it began. The wedding day was going to be upon us soon. I had big plans, and I wanted Jeremy to be a part of them. However, I wasn't going to tell him everything. He had to know about the promotion first. When we were alone at our place, I decided to tell him. "Hey, Han, I think there's something you should know." "Okay, what is it?" "Is it about my mom?" No, it's not. It's about me. About us." Jeremy sat down on a chair with a worried face. He probably thought it was bad news, considering how things were going between me and his mom. I couldn't wait to turn that frown upside down. "So you remember how I told you this one time that Edgar kind of wanted to start his own thing?" "Your boss, Edgar?" "Yeah, I think you did." "It was a while ago, though, like almost a year ago." "Yes, it was." "Well, he is going to leave us. He's got everything planned out for his next move, and I sat down next to him. Someone needs to fill in his position, and he wants it to be me." "What? Are you serious?" He looked amazed and shocked at the same time. I couldn't contain my joy. "Yes, honey, it's a big promotion." "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you." We embraced for what felt like hours. I was so happy to have someone so happy and excited for me. It was nothing short of a blessing. Things started being smooth between me and Cynthia, but it was like the calm before the storm. She would give me looks and say things like, "Don't you ever worry, Susan. If you ever get fired or want to quit your job for your kids, we'll keep you happy," which always infuriated me. But I didn't strike back too hard at her. I'd keep my composure until it was time. When the day was finally upon us, we made sure we invited everyone. My parents, his, and my work friends. Yes, that included Edgar as well. He was an old but gentle man with blue eyes. Edgar had a son who was about my age, and he brought his whole family with him to the wedding. The church was adorned beautifully. The flowers, the dress, and the decorations were all hand-picked by the two of us. We didn't get a chance to talk much during the ceremony, but it was during the after party that Cynthia's mind was blown away. We were standing around greeting everyone when Cynthia and Bob arrived straight from the church. "Oh, darling, you look so beautiful. I can't believe it. And you too, Susan. Everything was so perfect. I knew my son wouldn't be a cheapskate when it comes to big celebrations. Oh, I'm so proud." Actually, I didn't pay for anything, Mum, but thanks. I appreciate the gesture." "What do you mean you didn't pay? So you went with the split?" "No, not that either. Susan paid for everything." "There is no way. Even at your salary, you couldn't have afforded this, darling. Where did this money come from?" "Actually, Cynthia, I quit my job. I have another job now." "What? Another job?" It was right then that I saw Edgar and his family walk in. Everything was working perfectly. I went to get Edgar so he could meet my in-laws. "This is Edgar. Edgar, these are my in-laws, Cynthia and Bob." "Oh, hello, Bob. I've heard you're a businessman too. How proud are you of having this one around?" he said, looking at me and laughing. "Oh, very. I assume you're a businessman too, then." "Ah, yes, I used to be her boss." "You used to be?" "Yeah. Susan, you haven't told them about it. I thought they would know by now." "I was just going to, actually, but I thought it would be better if you did the honors. Nobody likes singing their own praises. Edgar." He laughed and nodded his head. He was always a jolly man. "Oh, wow. Then let me break it to you then. Susan is now CEO of the company a bunch of us started 5 years ago. I think she'll bring great success to it in my absence, especially with all of you supporting her. I've been so glad to be invited to the wedding. My son's getting married too in a few months. Susan's entire family will always be on the guest list, okay? Of course, we'll all be there." "Good. Now I'll let you guys be." With that, Edgar left to join his family for dinner. As expected, Cynthia and Bob had their jaws on the floor for a good minute. "Oh, why didn't you tell us? Love." "Exactly. I didn't even know you were conducting such great business. I just wanted it to be a surprise. And if you've been wondering, that's how I paid for everything." "Unbelievable. This is such great news. We have to celebrate alone as a family. I'm so sorry I've been so hard on you, Susan. Really, you are perfect for our boy. And you know what? Forget about the prenups thing too. I'll be happy even if you don't want to do them. We already did them, Mum, like you asked." "What? Really? But you can reverse them, right? I mean, it's not like you'd ever split, is it?" "No, but we felt like your advice was right. He keeps his money, and I keep mine. Isn't that exactly what you wanted? But what if Jeremy wants to be a part of your business? Do you want to be a part of it, Jeremy?" "Not really. I'm happy as it is." "He's happy, Cynthia. Their food is ready. I'd say you better eat it before it goes cold." And that's just how things ended. Cynthia was blown away, and as expected, she tried to go for as much money as possible. Meanwhile, I had love, and that's all you ever need. Thank you.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.